it should never be regarded as, oh, well, if we don't win a treble, it's been rubbish. That's just a kind of surreal existence. It can't go on. But I do believe, and I've said already, that Celtic are so much stronger than the rest. Brendan Rodgers is so on top of his game in the position right now, and the Rangers have got so much to do and so little time to do it. I don't think they are going to be real credible challengers for the title next season. So I'm putting Celtic firmly as favourites to win another title, which would take it to 5 in a row. And you would probably have to say, yes, okay, later in the season, maybe Rangers get some traction, momentum, they sort themselves out. They're going to be coming at it from a difficult position because they've left it so late. But I would actually probably say at this point, I think I said previously, if you were looking at it, your money would be on Celtic winning another treble next season. But that doesn't mean that failure to do so would be some sort of blemish against Brendan Rodgers or Celtic. Of course it wouldn't. That's just ridiculous.
It's mad. Growing up watching Scottish football, I mean, a treble felt unique. It felt like something out of the ordinary to get
some incredible milestone.
To go and get a treble. I mean, it felt so difficult to do. I mean, I remember Rangers going for a treble, I think it was 94, and it was like so big, getting into that final, the Scottish Cup final against Dundee United, and they still couldn't go over the line, couldn't get the treble done. I know they went on to they did win trebles under Walter Smith and then Alec McLeish, but very difficult thing to do. And just Jack was talking about the level of dominance there at Celtic. When I was at Tannadice a couple of weeks ago, Celtic won the title. Obviously, you're sitting in the press box and there's loads of numbers flying about. It's 4 in a row and it's 102 goals and Callum McGregor's 24th trophy or whatever it was, James Forrest 26. But just as I was writing all this stuff, it kind of dawned on me thinking, I'm writing about this 4 in a row. If Steven Gerrard hadn't won that title in 2021 for Rangers,
14 in a row.
14 in a row. I'd have been sitting writing about 14 in a row. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, how could you? What would you write? I mean, it would just become such the norm. I mean, 4 in a row, you can just get by, in terms of, you're almost kind of writing a lot of the same stuff year after year, but 14 in a row, it could have been staggering. Absolutely staggering.
Jimbo in the comments, Keith, says it's hardly a surprise when a 2-horse race was turned into a 1-horse race that more trebles were won.
It's still I don't care, and yes, I get that, but you can look at every league around the world, and at any one time there's probably maximum 3 teams with a real chance of winning the title. So to continually manage to achieve that, but then scoop up every other prize that's going, I'm sorry. You can diminish it as much as you want. You can try and normalise it, as Brendan Rodgers has been saying. This isn't normal. It's a world away from normal. We've never been so far removed from a normal set of circumstances in Scottish football. And that has to be, yes, people will argue, well, kind of Rangers have shot themselves, but that's Rangers' fault. You've got to give credit where it's due for the fact that Celtic have been so relentless and they've created this culture. And it's a culture within the club of people who live and breathe it, who, are just... And when new players come into it, they plug straight into it. They get it. This is a winning machine. And that's something that you can't build overnight. That's what I've talked about with Americans. They'll loads of good intentions and all that. But the thing is, Celtic have got like a 20-year jump on them now in terms of what they've built, the mentality that's been built and fostered inside the 4 walls of Lennoxtown. Puts them miles in front. And they deserve all the credit in the world for managing to achieve that.
Just before we move on from Celtic, Singing the Blues says, what's the record for titles in a row? I think Rosenborg got 13, but not sure. I think that is. That rings a bell. Kaiser says, we will do 9 in a row for the 3rd time. We'll be garnished with trebles, maybe even break the 10 before Rangers recover. You mentioned on this show, Keith, last week, I think, that Brendan Rodgers will look, if he does get to 5 in a row, he's then kind of looking ahead at that.
I'm sure he's already got one eye on it.
Brings me to my next point. This time next year he's out of contract. You'd have thought at some point this summer, Peter Lawwell and the board will need to sit down with him and go, look, are you staying beyond that? Do you think he will?
I think they'll be fairly relaxed about it. I think that Brendan Rodgers will, the discussion we had last night about what does Celtic's transfer policy look like this summer, that might feed into it and dictate what Brendan Rodgers thinks once he's got to the end of this contract. If he's getting all the right messaging from behind the scenes this summer, that would encourage him to think, right, well, here we go, can go beyond that. But I don't think there's any great panic. He's not going anyplace. Brendan Rodgers won't be panicking. Celtic won't be panicking. And I feel, as I've said a number of times now, he's had his experience of kind of wanting to sample the Premier League again, see if the grass was greener. He's realised it wasn't. He's realised how happy he was in Glasgow, how emotionally satisfied he was being the Celtic manager. And he's a different guy now in many ways. I think lessons learned. Every day's a school day and all that, even, for guys like us in our 50s. And I think he's perfectly comfortable where he is. He's relaxed in his own skin. And he's just grown into the job more and more. Listen, it might well be, who's to say? Who's to say by the end of next season, maybe goes, I'm actually exhausted, guys. I've come in, I've done my 3 years, and I now need that break that I was going to have before I came in the first place. There's nothing about Brendan Rodgers' demeanour that suggests to me that that's likely to be the case next summer. And I think if he does get to 5 in a row, of course, he's starting to realise that the thing that he left and was criticised so heavily for, this dream scenario of being the guy that leads Celtic to 10, and it's a once-in-a-lifetime scenario that all of a sudden it's come around again. It's twice in a lifetime. And would he walk away from that? Given that he walked away from it the first time, he'd need to be, I think, exhausted emotionally and physically to not want to stay on and give that a crack.
Aye.
I'm not sure, Danny. I think he'll go at the end of next season, if I'm being honest. I just think that's been his whole thing for when he came in. That 3 years, just doing the 3 years. Is
that Brendan on the phone?
Tell me to shut up. No, I just think, listen, it was the right time to come back. He obviously had to heal wounds that were there from before. I think he's now made up fully with the Celtic fans that didn't want him back. As we expected, he's been hugely successful, and as Jacko touched on, there's nothing to indicate that will change next season. No, given how tough it's going to be for Rangers to kind of turn it round in a short space of time. I don't know, if you get to 5 in a row, is Brendan Rodgers really going to stay at Celtic for another 5 years on top of that? I think when you look at his career, I think he'll still young enough to have big ambitions in his career. I think he'll want to go back to the Premier League. I think he definitely wants to manage in Europe at some point. Maybe a Spanish club, Portuguese club, something like that, a big club. Brendan Rodgers said himself after Tannadice, the people that are speculating and saying that he wants away, we're just guessing because we don't know him properly, we don't understand him. That might be the case, but my hunch and my gut feeling is that next season will probably be his last. He'll have done his stint and Celtic will be looking for another manager.
Kaiser says in the comment section, I think Brendan Rodgers is looking for a statue in the Celtic way, and Marzuno similarly says, how many people in life get statues? That's what Brendan blew the last time.
Listen, there's in my mind, and I'd say I kind of know Brendan quite well and what makes him tick, and I think that he was genuinely upset at the reaction to him leaving for Leicester the first time round, surprised and upset, and then I think that he realised over the period of being away that why the emotion was so raw, and I think he feels a sense of duty now. He does feel a sense of duty now. Whether Scott's right, but his sense of duty, is limited at a 3 year period. Maybe Scott's right. I get the sense with Brendan Rodgers that he feels he made a mistake, and it's not just so much the fact that he left the club, it's the moment in time when, this march towards 10 in a row and history was beckoning. He was pushing it an open door. And I think that probably that opportunity that he walked away from, as I said, should be a once in a lifetime. Incredibly, it might not be. And I think the closer he gets to realising it and being put back in that situation, I think the more emotionally he'll feel inclined to revisit a situation that he knows he shouldn't have really left behind in the first place.